The British monarchy, an institution built upon centuries of precedent, protocol, and public silence, has been plunged into what insiders are calling its most severe constitutional crisis since the abdication of Edward VIII. For decades, the royal family has projected an image of stoic unity, a carefully managed facade where disagreements are settled in hushed corridors, not in the pages of newspapers. However, the carefully constructed peace has shattered. In an unprecedented and shocking move, the Princess Royal and Elizabeth Alice Louise has exercised a rarely used authority to formally exclude Queen Camilla from all planning meetings related to the Prince of Wales's future coronation. This is not a simple family squabble over seating arrangements or guest lists. It is a calculated surgical strike by the hardest-working member of the firm against the woman who sits beside the king, a move that exposes a fault line running directly through the heart of the House of Windsor. Behind the ornate tapestries and gilded frames of Buckingham Palace, a Cold War that had been simmering for years has finally turned hot, and the victor, at least for this round, is the unyielding daughter of Queen Elizabeth II. To understand the magnitude of this rupture, one must first appreciate the unique role Princess Anne occupies within the royal ecosystem. While her brothers, King Charles III and Prince Andrew, have been defined by their passions and scandals respectively, and her younger brother Edward by his quiet consistency and has always been the monarchy's steel spine. She is famously indifferent to fashion, brutal in her honesty, and possesses a work ethic that leaves palace aides half her age gasping for breath. She is the only member of the family who has never given a tell-all interview, never courted celebrity, and never wavered in her interpretation of duty. When her mother was alive and was the enforcer, the one who ensured that the protocols of state were observed with religious precision. Now, in the reign of her elder brother, she has stepped into a role that no one formally appointed her to, the guardian of the institution. It is from this position of moral and logistical authority that she has struck. The trigger for this dramatic intervention, according to multiple senior palace sources who spoke on condition of absolute anonymity due to the sensitivity of the matter, was not a single event, but a pattern of behavior that Princess Anne deemed an unacceptable overreach. Since the accession of King Charles III, Queen Camilla has quietly but persistently expanded her portfolio. While publicly she remains focused on her patronages of literacy and domestic violence awareness, privately she has developed a keen interest in the ceremonial machinery of the crown. She has involved herself in the fine details of state banquets, the drafting of the annual Windsor Castle Garter Day processions, and most critically the preliminary, highly confidential discussions regarding the London Bridge and Menai Bridge protocols, the code names for the death of the sovereign, and the succession planning for the next. For Anne, this was a bridge too far. A source close to the Princess Royal revealed her private sentiment. The consort advises the monarch she does not architect the future of the monarchy, and believes that planning for William's coronation is a matter for the heir and the crown, not for the spouse. The exclusion itself was executed with a level of bureaucratic cruelty that only a veteran of royal households could devise. There was no dramatic confrontation in the throne room, no shouting match caught on tape. Instead, the blocking was silent. According to a detailed leak from a royal communications officer, the digital calendar for the Crown Succession Committee, a working group consisting of the Lord Chamberlain, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Prime Minister's private secretary, and senior palace officials, was quietly altered. Queen Camilla's access was revoked. Her private secretary, a long-serving aide named who has been with her since the Clarence House days, was removed from the distribution list for a 30-page strategic document entitled The Guiding Principles for the Inauguration of William V. When the Queen's office inquired about the lack of meeting invites, they were met with a wall of polite, unshakable stone. One aide was told verbatim, "The Princess Royal has determined that this is a matter for the direct line of succession only." The emotional fallout from this decision has been catastrophic for the already fragile peace at the heart of the royal family. Queen Camilla, who spent nearly 2 decades navigating the treacherous waters of public opinion following the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, believed she had finally secured her legacy. She had been crowned queen alongside her husband in a ceremony that, while shortened, was deeply affirming. She had seen her sons from her first marriage, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopez, integrated more warmly into the extended royal circle. Yet, this move by and has effectively rescinded that acceptance. A close friend of the Queen, speaking to a broadsheet newspaper under the condition of anonymity, described Camilla's state as deeply wounded and furious. The friend elaborated, "She has been loyal to Charles for 50 years. She has endured unimaginable vitriol. To be told now, when she has finally reached the apex of her role, that she is not trusted to help plan the future of her own stepson's coronation, is a humiliation she never expected. She feels as if, and has put a sign on her that reads interloper after all this time, King Charles III finds himself trapped in an impossible vice. On one side stands his beloved wife, a woman for whom he sacrificed his own reputation and his first marriage. On the other stands his sister, the embodiment of their mother's legacy, and his son, the future of the dynasty. Witnesses claim that, when Charles initially approached and to ask for a reversal of the decision, the meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. The king, perhaps hoping for fraternal sympathy, was met with the same rigid logic and applies to her equestrian competitions. It is understood, she told her brother directly, "You are the custodian of the crown for a finite time. William is the future." This is not about liking or disliking Camilla. It is about ensuring that when William raises his hand to swear his oath, no one questions who is shaping his hand. The consort's role is to support the monarch of the day. It is not to build the platform for the next reign. These words, reported by a trusted courtier, left the king visibly shaken, but ultimately unable to refute the constitutional logic. However painful it was personally, this clash is merely the peak of an iceberg of tension that has been building between the Princess Royal and the Queen Consort for over a decade. To trace the origins of this feud, one must look back to the death of the Queen Mother and the gradual rehabilitation of Camilla. While Princes William and Harry publicly embraced their stepmother and remained coolly civil but never warm, palace insiders recall a specific incident at a family gathering at Sandringham several years ago. Camilla, attempting to make a joke about the dress uniform of a senior equerry, was met with a stony, silent stare from, and that reportedly silenced the entire room, and does not approve of what she views as the modernization for the sake of PR. She is a traditionalist. She believes that Camilla's media-friendly approach, the carefully lit interviews, the soft-focused documentaries, the strategic leaks about her genuine nature are undignified, and once famously remarked to a lady-in-waiting that the work should speak for itself. If you need a publicist to explain your charity, you are doing the charity for the wrong reason. The strategic mind behind this blockade is not acting alone. While Princess and is the executioner, Prince William is the architect who commissioned the act. The future king has watched his father's reign navigate one crisis after another, from the fallout of Spare to the ongoing tensions with Prince Andrew. William is determined that when his time comes, the transition will be seamless, orderly, and entirely under his control. He views Camilla's growing influence as a confounding variable. A source within the Kensington Palace advisory team stated that William has become increasingly concerned that Camilla's family, the Parker Bowles, and the Shands, might seek to formalize their proximity to the throne. This is not paranoia. It is the lesson of history learned from the rise of the Spencer family in the 1980s. William reportedly told a confidant, "My father's reign has been about securing his love story. My reign must be about securing the institution. I cannot govern if I am managing competing family factions." The specific flashpoint that precipitated his intervention was a leaked memo concerning the guest list for the Coronation concert, which is currently in the early planning stages. According to the leak, a suggestion was floated from Clarence House, the King and Queen's residence, that several of Queen Camilla's close relatives be given prominent speaking roles in the televised event, potentially even a joint address. When this proposal reached the planning committee, Princess and is said to have dismissed it out of hand with a single terse sentence: "This is William's night, not a family reunion for the Bowles." This remark, cutting and crisp, made its way back to the Queen, who felt it was a deliberate attempt to belittle her family's status. For Anne, however, it was a simple matter of optics. She believes that the visual of the coronation must center exclusively on the transfer of power from father to son, with the monarch's spouse visible but not vocal. Camilla's desire to project her own familial legacy and, argued, threatened to confuse the message. The reaction from the public and the international press has been swift and divided. On one side, many Britons have expressed support for Princess and viewing her actions as necessary tough love to protect the crown from mission creep. Social media has been flooded with comparisons of and to a royal terminator immune to charm or manipulation. Editorial pages have noted that the Princess Royal is consistently rated as the most trusted member of the family, precisely because she seems indifferent to public opinion. However, others have decried the move as archaic and misogynistic, suggesting that Anne is enforcing a patriarchal standard that keeps women in a subservient role. Critics argue that Camilla, as a senior working royal, has as much right as anyone to help plan an event that will dominate the global stage. It is 2025, one columnist wrote. Why is the consort being shut out of the planning room? Is she supposed to simply sit at home and await her costume? Within the royal household, the atmosphere is described as febrile. Staff members are taking sides, a dangerous development in an institution that relies on absolute discretion. The so-called Wales camp, William and Catherine, is aligned tightly with the in camp. Meanwhile, the Buckingham Palace camp, Charles and Camilla, feels besieged. There have already been whispers of resignations. One senior valet, who has served the Queen consort for years, is rumored to have handed in his notice, feeling that his mistress has been publicly shamed. Conversely, members of the Princess Royal staff are reportedly jubilant, feeling that their principal's decades of thankless service have finally been recognized with the deference she is due. This has created a two-tier system where information is being weaponized. Briefings are being selectively leaked to friendly reporters. The idea of the unified family that Charles has fought so hard to project is now a distant, almost laughable memory. In the midst of this chaos, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, has remained conspicuously silent. However, her silence is a strategic weapon. Catherine has learned the art of royal power better than anyone since the Queen Mother. By not taking sides publicly, she allows Anne to be the heavy, while she remains the serene future queen. Nevertheless, it is known that Catherine and Anne share a deep, unspoken bond forged in the fire of royal duty, and was one of the first senior royals to treat Catherine not as William's girlfriend, but as a future sovereign's partner, helping her navigate the treacherous early years of media scrutiny. In return, Catherine respects Anne's authority. It is highly likely that Catherine has given and tacit approval for this intervention, believing that a clear delineation of Camilla's role now will prevent headaches for her own reign later. The Fab Four, William, Catherine, and her husband Tim, have reportedly formed a formidable internal voting bloc that Charles finds increasingly difficult to outmaneuver. The legal and constitutional implications of this feud are murky. There is no written statute that dictates who may plan a coronation. It is a matter of custom. Typically, the Earl Marshal, a hereditary office held by the Duke of Norfolk, organizes the ceremony, taking direction from the sovereign. However, the planning for a future reign is an extra-legal affair, existing entirely in the realm of family politics and soft power. By blocking Camilla, Anne has set a dangerous precedent. She has effectively asserted that the heir to the throne has the right to veto the involvement of the consort. If this becomes the established norm, then every future heir will have the power to exclude the spouse of the reigning monarch. While this might seem harsh, defenders of Anne argue it is necessary to prevent the kind of bloated, performative monarchy that has plagued other European houses. And is not breaking the rules, her supporters argue. She is reminding everyone of the rules that had been forgotten. How has King Charles responded to this mutiny? Publicly, the king has maintained a stoic facade, hosting diplomatic receptions and undertaking state duties with his usual quiet determination. Privately, however, He is said to be devastated. He never wanted a divided family. His entire life was a testament to the pain of a divided household. He thought that by marrying Camilla and finally giving her the title of queen, the wounds would heal. Instead, the stitching has torn open. It is reported that he has retreated to his painting studio at Highgrove, more often, seeking solace in watercolors. He has not overruled, and that is the most telling detail of all. The king, a constitutional monarch, may realize that while he can command the government, he cannot command the respect of his sister and heir if it has been lost. To force and to include Camilla would require a direct order, and if that order were defied or merely obeyed with hostility, his authority would be shattered irreparably. The security implications of this internal strife are also causing concern within Whitehall. The Royal Protection Command is acutely aware of the tensions. When the family is fighting, their movements become less predictable, and their security protocols become harder to enforce. Furthermore, there is anxiety that the feud could spill into actual state business. Foreign ambassadors are experts at reading atmospheres. If they perceive a weak or divided British monarchy, it could have soft power repercussions. The Prime Minister, while officially remaining neutral, has been kept abreast of the situation by the Cabinet Secretary. While a constitutional crisis is unlikely to force a vote in Parliament, the potential for destabilization is real. One government official noted, "We need the monarchy to be a fixed point." A row over who gets to sit at the big table during planning meetings might seem trivial, but it speaks to a deeper instability. Is the king in charge, or is his sister? Looking to the future, Queen Camilla is not likely to accept this exclusion lying down. She has resources at her disposal. She retains the loyalty of her children, who are popular in their own right. She has access to the king every single night. The campaign to reverse this decision will be a slow, persistent erosion of resistance. She may adopt a strategy of gracious suffering, appearing in public with a brave face, allowing the media to paint her as a victim of the cold, unfeeling, and, alternatively, she could fight fire with fire, leveraging her patronage of major organizations to demand inclusion. However, a direct confrontation would likely backfire. If Camilla forces her way into a meeting and is perfectly capable of simply walking out, taking William with her, that image, the queen consort standing alone in an empty room, would be the ultimate victory for Anne's narrative. Princess Anne, for her part, has shown no signs of backing down. She is currently on a series of engagements in the Midlands, opening a new equine therapy center and visiting a regiment of the army. She has made no mention of the controversy, and her press secretary has issued a categorical no comment to all inquiries. This silence is, in itself, a statement, and is betting that time is on her side. She knows that coronation planning takes years. She knows that William is the future. She knows that King Charles, who is in his mid-70s, will eventually become less involved in the granular details of statecraft. By staking her position now, and is shaping the landscape that will exist when her brother is gone. She is acting as the regent of the future, ensuring that when the crown passes from Charles to William, it passes cleanly, without the residue of Charles's personal history clinging to it. In the end, this battle is about one thing: legacy. For Camilla, this is about securing her place in history as a legitimate queen, not a mistress who snuck into the palace through the back door. And this is about preserving the integrity of the crown itself, stripping it of sentimentality, and returning it to raw, unfeeling duty. For William, this is about power. He needs a clean slate to write his own reign. The sad irony is that King Charles, a man who has waited 7 decades to bring his vision of a modern, compassionate monarchy to life, is watching it be dismantled by the very people he loves. The doors to the planning room are locked, the guest lists are being redacted, and the lines are drawn in the ancient, creaking floors of the palace. The British monarchy is fighting a war over a crown that has not yet been passed, and the opening salvo has been fired by the one person everyone knew was too tough to ever compromise, and the Princess Royal.